Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. This is Bob Gibbons.
I'm your other host, Stephen Nooner.
And we are going to have a bit of an unusual show today. Unusual, yes. For the first time ever, we have a repeat guest, Kevin Bonfield, who was a great guest, a year ago or more?
Yeah, about 18 months ago.
18 months ago. And he's with Concentre, and you can find him at concentregroup.com. And Concentre is actually spelled a little differently because, he's British. Concentre.
I thought we just made fun of Canadians, not...
Well, no, pretty much
Brits. Okay.
Everybody.
All right. Well, welcome, Kevin.
Particularly
Thank you very much. I tend to think of it as being spelled the right way, R-E rather than E-R.
Okay, so theatre.
Exactly.
Theatre.
Exactly. And I've got my my Union Jack cufflinks on today as well.
Very nice.
Just in case you forget that I'm English.
Yeah, well, that would be tough to do.
But
welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'm really
back.
excited to be back here. I had a whole selection of different jackets that I needed to break out. So
good choice.
Thank you very much.
You are my sartorial idol.
Bob even upped his game and wore a jacket today, which
Stephen will be Googling
impressive.
the word sartorial here any moment.
As long as I don't have to spell it, I don't care. So we like to start off every show with something other than funny comments about wardrobe.
Yes.
We like to start off with wisdom of others. We have a quote today relevant to today's conversation. It's from Viktor Frankl. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And Kevin, you gave me this quote, so tell me why that's important to you.
To me, it talks all about having a clear and a clear sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it that you want to go? And in the worst of times, what's keeping you moving forward and moving towards that end point? And for those of you who have read any of Viktor Frankl's work, he went through a terrible time. Absolutely terrible time during the Second World War. He was in the ghettos and then in one of the concentration camps. And for somebody to go through that and have that point of view that it's all about being clear on what your purpose is and then being able to help other people to achieve their purpose. He saw it in the starkest light where people survived or didn't, and the people who had purpose survived. So there are probably less hard quotes and hard people to talk about, but that's one that's really stood out for me.
Yeah. The other thing I like about though, real quick, is that it says that I'm responsible for my attitude and what I do.
Yes, you are,
Yes.
Bob.
And I'm not going to let Stephen and his sarcasm detract me or run me down. That's my choice. And really, that's true, because you look at people in different circumstances, they are in the same circumstances, but they respond differently. And it's because of that attitude.
Yeah, I think that there's one of the things that I've learned from being an entrepreneur is that you have to take complete accountability. And until you've done that, then all you're doing is looking around and looking for other people to blame. Once you've taken on that accountability, then you're right. It's innate in you. It's what you have to go and do, and then it's about, okay, so what am I going to go and do?
Well, and the thing that resonated with me too is it's not, you mentioned the choice of making that choice, but much like my sarcasm, it keeps coming. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever challenge you're dealing with in life, it's a continuous choice. You have to continuously re-choose for whatever is next, and sometimes the same thing over and over again if you're Bob dealing with me. So getting into kind of this teed up the conversation. So Kevin is our first second-time guest.
Thank you.
Congrats again. I was really excited to have you back. This all came up. Kevin and I serve on a board together, an entrepreneurs organization, great organization. And he had we have a need or lead at the end. And it's where you just have a request. And he threw out the request that, if anyone had any thoughts around the topic of legacy, I'm paraphrasing, but would you send them to him? And I had a lot of thoughts because I've done a lot of work, and I'm real excited about when it comes to the thought of purpose and legacy and their connection. And so anyway, we've been friends for a while. He's been on the show. And then through that, it's opened up a whole series of conversations, and it's a lot of fun. So I did not even know, I'm ashamed to say, I did not even know that you had this passion around legacy in particular. How did you get into that, and when did that kind of light up for you?
Yeah, so it started earlier on this year. Back to the Entrepreneurs Organization, I was away on our forum retreat for the year. And one of the exercises that we went through was to write our own obituary, which I get is probably not the happiest of things to do. And it's a very quick, but it's probably one of the most impactful exercises that I've ever done. So take 20 minutes, write your obituary, and then share whichever pieces of it you want to.
Wow.
And so the thing that was fascinating to me as I went through that was that there were things that were in there that were interesting to me, the things that I'd focused on. I mean, think about it this way. You're trying to distill your life down to 20 minutes, or what you can write down in 20 minutes. And so there's things that you miss out. And the review of what was missed out was more interesting at the end of the day than I think what was in there. There were things that were missed out which I didn't regret, and there were some things that I missed out which were fascinating to me. So things like I was very focused on my kids and what I wanted to leave behind at the end of this. So my kids and my wife, but there wasn't as much around my broader family. And it's not that I don't love them. I do, and they're a very important part of my life. But when you distilled it down to 20 minutes, they weren't in there during that first.
You've got to prioritize, right?
Wow. You do. So that was the first piece, and then I was invited to participate in an event called The Conversation. There's an author called Tammy Kling, and she's been working with me on the book that I'm finishing up writing. And she said, "Would you like to come along and participate?" And there are 4 topics, but I'd like you to stay with one topic for the whole evening. And legacy, as a result of having this obituary conversation, legacy was the one that spoke to me. And so I spent an evening in a forest listening to 4 different groups and engaging with 4 different groups on the topic of legacy. And that was, for me, was when it started to extend into purpose and passion.
So let's talk about that. So just curious, 4 groups.
Yeah.
Were the conversations similar, or were they all over the place?
There were definitely some pieces which were common, but the event has 100 people, 100 world changers, and they tended to come in groups. So there were people who were more entrepreneurial. There were people who were more focused on social improvement. So yes, there was a range of different things that people focused on.
Okay.
But legacy was something that pretty much everybody was passionate about talking about.
Passionate about talking about, but before this type of event, these are game changers, so maybe they're more elevated in their thinking.
Yeah.
But I find like a lot of people probably don't give any thought to this,
That's right.
whether legacy or purpose. One of the things why I'm passionate about is I think that a lot of people unintentionally leave a legacy by just kind of meandering through life. I mean, doing their best,
right,
but not really with a lot of intentionality.
Well, reacting.
Yeah,
They're reacting instead of being proactive and having that intention. But did you find in writing the obituaries that people were writing what they thought they ought to be as opposed to what they really wanted to be?
Look, I think that let me speak for myself. Yes, there were definitely pieces of that were me trying to convey what I thought was important, right? I mean, I was writing it, so it would be difficult for me to not do that. But the things that I think came through in the end were the things that really drove me. So yeah, I have some humor in my life. It's one of the ways that I deal with things. So yes, there were some humorous pieces in there. One of the things I added in was that I was Times Person of the Year in 2006, and if you remember that was Times Person of the Year in 2006 was you. So clearly we were all Person of the Year in 2006. But I thought that would be that kind of conveys my fun. But the real piece in there for me is how I help other people, right? Help people find their legacy, help people find their purpose, and then empower them to go and find it.
What's the intersection of those in your mind? Purpose, legacy, right?
Yeah. So for me, I don't believe that you get to set your legacy. And the reason for that is that other people sit outside and judge what your legacy is, right? The thing that you do get to set is what your passion is and what your purpose is. And if you go and live those on a day-to-day basis, then you will achieve that as a legacy. Fingers crossed. But those are the things that you get to control.
So purpose is what you decide. Legacy is the byproduct, which is judged by others.
Right. And the judging by others is going to be based on the relationship that they have with you. So, your view of my legacy might be very different to my kids' view of what my legacy is. Right.
Oh, yeah.
But hopefully at the core, there's something which is similar, because that's who the essence of it comes from who I am.
I watched a kind of docudrama like movie about the life of Albert Einstein, right? And there were all kinds of things I didn't know about him. So there's the science part that I knew, right? Being a science nerd, I knew that, but I didn't know about all of his other challenges in life. And so his kids, I'm sure, have a very different view. They definitely could connect to his passion around science and some of his groundbreaking thought and his general way of being.
Right.
But how they viewed his legacy, whether it's his ex-wife or his kids, might be entirely different than someone else.
And in that particular series, which I watched as well because of your recommendation, his problem with his kids was his single purpose on science, which was at the exclusion of the family.
Yeah.
And so that's where that gets to be a problem, is how do you have a purpose that doesn't exclude?
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm trying to wrap them together, right? So one of the things that I wrote on one of the last lines was, I'm trying to be the best daddy that I can be for my kids, right? I may not be successful every day, but I try every day. So.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, let's take a break.
We're going to go to the break. Before we do, is the Next Level show living up to its purpose, and is it leaving a legacy?
Why'd you have to go there?
Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand. And landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
Hi, this is Wade Myers, the Managing Director of Boldmore Growth Partners, where we help baby boomers grow the value of their business and exit their business successfully. And speaking of exit, I'm going to head out the door because Bob and Steven are done with me.
Welcome back to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. We're here with our guest, Kevin Bonfield of Concentre. You can find them online at concentregroup.com.
For all of you watching this or listening to this, go check out on YouTube. Bob did his head tilt like he was British when he said Concentre. It's awesome.
Concentregroup.com.
All right. Well, our hook, right before we went off, and I thought it was kind of a cool thing to measure ourselves by. Right, we're talking about things that we're passionate about. Next Level show, we definitely want to have an impact, and we had a mission or purpose for it, and we wanted to be leaving a legacy. But I thought it was an important conversation to screen ourselves by. But I also it is self-promoting because I know that part of the reason why you're back here is a story that you shared.
Yeah, so there were two stories I think that would be helpful coming out of my my last visit. The first was that this show had an immediate impact for me and my company. And the first part of it was that somebody listened to the recording shortly after it came out. I think it came out in August of last year, and it was partly listening to that recording that they decided that they wanted to come and join our company, and they're still with us. And
Nice.
that was
awesome.
And they sought you out?
No,
you
we
already
had
knew them?
No, we had found them,
Okay.
and they were in the interview process, and as part of their due diligence, they listened to this show, and said, yes, this is a company that I want to go and work for. So that was
That's so cool.
yeah, very, very cool. The second was there was a section in the discussion we had, and I went back and listened to it recently. There was a section in there where Bob was asking me about, but what does Concentre do? No, really, I don't quite get that. What does Concentre do? And I always felt like the whole show just flowed for me, other than that section, and I was banging my head up against the wall, going, "How do I explain this
To somebody so dense as Bob.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't that. It was because my team have been asking me similar things. It's like, what hill are we going to take, right? So everybody's used different words to describe why are we here, what's our purpose, what are we going to do about it, but not in we do consulting and we do it for CIOs, because that it doesn't really explain why it is that we're here. And so it's forced me to go and stop and think about why is it that I do this at all, and then as a result, how does that translate into what our company does?
Which is super cool, right? So because it's like the conversation you said was flowing, you're energized, and this is your business, your baby, right? And then for the flat line, right? Like, whoa, what's up with that?
Exactly. And so the thought process that I've gone through over the last year has been to try and crystallize what that purpose is, and to be able to tell people why it is that we do what we do. And so we've shifted from talking about what it is that we do, and we're clear on that, right? We do IT strategy and transformation. We work for CIOs, and we help them execute the plans that they have. Okay, but what's our purpose? Well, our purpose is really to go and be very clear about what their legacy and purpose is that they want to achieve, and then we empower them and help them to go and achieve that. And when I've had that conversation with different people, it's much more exciting, and it's more visceral, rather than, we can come in and do PowerPoints for you.
When it also makes you a part of the process, and a part of the solution, instead of just a vendor.
Exactly.
Well, and think about that, right? So, and I think it's a cool distinction, because a lot of times when you say the word legacy, right, or you think about purpose, people are thinking, most people I've talked to about these subjects, they're thinking of grand scale, like we started at the beginning, obituary, right? What you're really talking about, I mean, what's the typical tenure of a CIO? I think
Yeah, 5 years or less these days, yeah.
So what's your legacy going to be in 5 years or less?
Right.
That's a whole different...
Well, so I don't think we caught it on the front end, but most people don't think about legacy. I think it's something like 98% of people don't. So
98?
Yes.
Whoa.
So 2% do, and yet everybody leaves one.
And they're all over 80.
Not going to touch that one. But yes, as it relates to legacy, it feels like it's a big L legacy, and the work that we do is much more small L legacy. And the way that I think about it is that you start a job, and at some point in 2, 3, 5 years, somebody is going to write an email that says, Kevin has moved on and decided to go and do something else. And the next sentence describes the legacy that you have left in that job. Is it they've gone on to take on other opportunities, or is it we've seen them grow their team, empower their team, they've delivered great things, and as a result, that's what I think of as small legacy. Thinking about what that email is going to look like in 2, 3, 5 years as you make that transition, and then working back and saying, how do I make that a reality?
So as a business owner and an entrepreneur, you have a purpose, personally, professionally. How do those have to be connected, number one? And do your employees within your company have to buy into your purpose?
Yeah, are they connected? I think that they have to be. For me, I think that's an authenticity piece. It would be very difficult for me to say that my passion and my purpose at home is one thing, and then at work is something completely different. And so I've tried to connect it. And in the same way, the discussion we're having within our company is how do we connect everybody's purposes, right? So for me personally, it's about empowering and making you the best you that you can be, right? There's another member of my team who is absolutely passionate about technology and the advances that are coming on in technology. Well, in the company that we're in, that works well because I'm trying to empower the leaders, and he's trying to, through tools and planning and mindsets, and he's trying to empower them through giving them the information on the latest technology and how to make it real. So we're actually very connected on that. But yes, his passion and his purpose is slightly different to mine, but in this particular case, in our company, it comes together.
Right, and which is a good thing
Yeah.
when you're the end user client, right? I mean, because you want everyone to be passionate and purposeful about whatever part of that equation they're holding.
Right.
How do you screen for that, though?
I mean, I think that goes back to what your, what is your purpose, or why does your business exist, and then what are your core values of your business, and that's the glue that binds together that vision. And it is, but that's the hard thing. The hard lesson I learned in the business is like I first thought it was like everyone's going to go, to the promised land, or it was like marriage. We're getting together and we're always going to be together and everything else. But what I realized is sometimes it just intersects for a time, and if it was fruitful for everyone involved during that time, then that's a win. Because at some point maybe that email will come. Hopefully we get to retain them, and that email's within. They're taking a bigger role within the company, but. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, that's a good question.
I think that's right. I mean, we have clarity around our values. We screen for values. We use them in our review cycle as well. And I think that our values are actually very connected to the way that we're describing our purpose moving forward. Part of the screening process, though, I think, is just to tell people. Right, so we can assess. I can assess you whether I think you're scrappy and entrepreneurial, which is one of our values. But if I tell you that our company is scrappy and entrepreneurial, and you should come and join us because of that,
you might self-select out.
Yeah, either you're really excited about that, or you go, I'm not so sure. Right, scrappy and entrepreneurial sounds painful.
Bureaucratic and
but just being clear and having passion around telling people what your values are and where you're going, I think. Allows people to make that decision for themselves.
And like I said, the choice is daily. The you talked about the big L, little L. I think that's super powerful, and I think it ties back into the intersection with the purpose. There's kind of I tell people that a lot of times I think that where I finally came to my life lit up when I realized that I was really so. Maybe I had the obituary, the lifetime purpose, but really it's like, what's my purpose for today? Because you've got to be intentional about today, and you've got to be in shape, because when whatever you believe, for me, I believe that God will open doors, close doors, whatever. When that opportunity comes up, I want to be physically prepared, almost like an athlete, ready for the championship game whenever it comes up because I've been living intentionally. And I don't do that perfectly, but that's the way I'd like to think that I'm striving to live, you know?
Yeah, we talked about time frame earlier on, right? So end of life or the next 2-3 years, and then today. And I tend to think of that as the habits that you form and then you exercise on a daily basis. So if I want to be somebody who is helping others with their legacy and then empowering them to go and achieve it so that they can be the best that they can be, I can't just do that on Friday, right? I have to find opportunities to do that on a daily basis. Otherwise, it'll never become true.
Absolutely. So is there's the who's the guy that did the why?
Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek. So is the why of your company the same as the purpose of your company?
I believe it. I believe it is. I think that there's some, there's some back and forth on do we use why, do we use purpose? I heard, and I forget who it is who made this comment, but I thought it was very insightful. I'm using purpose more than why because why can sometimes come across as adversarial. What's your why? Tell me why. Right, versus purpose, which is more
because.
But purpose is very proactive and not judgmental, right? And so I've tended more towards purpose than why, but it is the same thing in my mind. Yep.
So, quick questions here. So, because we're winding down here, what are the unintended consequences in your mind of people not thinking about this subject, the 98% that aren't? And then 2, what are just some like getting down to the ground level, some handles that anybody listening to the show can take away and be intentional with what they just heard? Right.
So unintended consequences. So everyone leaves a legacy. At the end of their lives, at the end of the job that they're in, people are going to tell a story about Stephen. People are going to tell a story about Bob. And regardless of whether you think about it or plan for it or have habits in place that go and exercise you towards that legacy, there is a legacy. So the question is, do you want the story that's going to be told, the one that is your story, or one that somebody else makes up, right? So that would be the unintended. I think you've got to be purposeful or it will happen. And the challenge is that it's one sentence,
right?
Typically.
And the handles.
Yes. And then getting started, I think, start by writing your obituary or writing the email that is going to be describing you at the end of this particular job. Just get started.
Kevin, I'm sorry we have to end it here.
Me too.
But thank you for your time.
But why? Why, Bob? Why do we have to end it?
I have a new purpose already. Please go to concentragroup.com. Go to the next level or nextlevelshow.com about the show. And we'll see you next week with another great guest.
Spread the word. Social media. Someone else needs to hear this conversation.
Bye.
Have a good week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.